If you own an investment property in Phoenix right now, you're probably not panicking, but you might feel tired. Not tired of real estate, but tired of managing complexity. Tired of having to constantly think about pricing, messaging, guest expectations, turnovers, maintenance, and whether the effort still matches the return. You've already adjusted your expectations. You've already lived through short term rental volatility. You've already watched the market normalize. And now the question isn't, is this broken? It's quieter than that. It's, is this still the smartest use for this particular property? Because in 2026, the challenge isn't finding opportunity. Opportunity still exists all over Phoenix. The challenge is deciding what to keep, what to change, and what to let go of without making a move that feels relieving today, but frustrating 2 or 3 years from now. That's the part nobody really prepares you for. In this video, I want to walk you through the framework Phoenix investors are using right now to decide whether to sell, hold, or convert a property, not emotionally, not reactively, but strategically with control, clarity, and optionality in mind. This isn't about chasing the highest number on a spreadsheet. It's about aligning the property with your life, your time, and your long-term plans. A few years ago, these decisions were easier. Rising values covered mistakes. Short-term rental revenue masked inefficiency. Low interest rates made holding feel painless. You could be slightly off on pricing, slightly off on strategy, slightly off on execution, and still feel like you're winning. That phase is over. Not because Phoenix declined, but because it matured. And mature markets require better thinking, not more hustle. In 2026, investors aren't asking, how do I squeeze more out of this? They're asking, how do I make this property work with my life instead of against it? That shift matters more than most people realize. It's the difference between constantly reacting and finally feeling grounded again. Before you decide what to do with a property, there's one question you have to answer honestly, and it's one most investors skip. What role is this property supposed to play in your portfolio right now? Not 5 years ago when you bought it, not based on what the internet says you should be doing, but right now. Is this property meant to create some steady income that you don't have to babysit? Is it meant to preserve capital in a strong Phoenix corridor? Is it meant to reduce a mental and operational load so you can focus elsewhere? Is it meant to offset taxes? Is it meant to sit quietly and appreciate while you build other things? Or is it meant to stay flexible so you can pivot later if the market or your life changes? A property without a clearly defined role almost always feels uncomfortable. That discomfort shows up as second guessing. It shows up as resentment towards the property. It shows up as constantly wondering if you should do something different. That feeling isn't fear, it's misalignment. Selling is not a failure move, and in some cases, it is the smartest move available. But in 2026, selling out of fatigue can be expensive. Selling tends to make sense when equity is high, but underutilized, when the property no longer fits your capacity or priorities. When you want to redeploy capital intentionally into something that better matches your current strategy, when management friction outweighs the benefit, or when you're exiting a strategy, not just escaping stress. What I see go wrong is selling because a property feels annoying instead of asking whether it simply needs a different role. A property that feels heavy as a short term rental might feel incredibly light as something else. Fatigue is temporary, capital decisions are permanent. Holding, on the other hand, doesn't get much attention because it's not exciting. There's no big announcement, no dramatic shift. But in Phoenix, holding is often the quiet power move. Holding makes sense when the location remains fundamentally strong, when your debt structure is manageable, when demand clearly exists, but the operating model needs adjustment, when you value long term control and flexibility, and when you don't actually need to force maximum income out of the property right now. Holding isn't doing nothing. It's choosing patience over pressure. It's choosing to let the asset work without constantly squeezing it. And for many investors, this is exactly where conversion enters the conversation. Conversion isn't indecision, it's strategy. Instead of selling or forcing performance, investors are asking a different question. They're asking, how can this same property work differently? That might mean converting a short-term rental into a midterm rental, mean reducing turnover and operational intensity. It might mean trading volatility for predictability. It might mean aligning the property with longer stay demand instead of weekend demand. Same property, new job description. For many Phoenix homes, especially those in suburban neighborhoods near hospitals, near employment corridors, or in family oriented areas, this is one of the cleanest ways to protect equity while regaining breathing room. The income may look different on paper, but the stability, predictability, and reduced mental outload often outweigh that difference. The bigger picture here is that this market isn't asking you to move faster, it's asking you to move more intentionally. The most experienced investors I work with are no longer optimizing for maximum cash flow at all costs. They're optimizing for control, for time, for predictability, for optionality, for the ability to sleep at night without checking a calendar or repricing every week. Those things don't always show up cleanly in spreadsheets, but they show up very clearly in quality of life and long term outcomes. If you're wrestling with whether to sell, hold, or convert a property, you're not behind. You're exactly where thoughtful investors land when markets mature. This is what experience looks like. Sometimes the right answer isn't obvious until someone helps you look at the property in context, not isolation. And if you ever want to talk through that decision calmly, clearly, without pressure, I'm always open to that conversation because clarity beats urgency every time.